Hello everyone and welcome to another Orbiter stream. In the last stream we attempted to set up a Venus flyby
Airlock Houston, space to ground 2
for the
for
Earth Venus return mission. So after a bit more messing around, I think I figured out the combination of outward velocity needed to get a reasonably close approach. So right now I'm just adjusting the outward velocity in prograde.
Station Houston,
Get an
space ground 2
acceptably
for
close
Jess.
pass. I also will need to adjust the plane change to align ourselves with the orbital plane of the Earth.
Good copy. And one last note, Steve, while I have you, step 6 of MPLM ingress will not be required.
Discovery Station on the big loop, you have a go for starboard MRL release.
For this one, I'm going to bring up Trajectory Optimizer tool again and see if we can get any additional potentially useful information from it.
Station Houston, space ground 2 for Jeff.
At this point, I'm now going to attempt to put the user per departure analysis tool
we are
from
ready
the
anytime.
Optimizer tool.
Copy. Give us a few minutes. We'll call you back when we're set up.
Try and plan
And
a
KU's
departure there and
locked.
see if we can get any better of a close approach.
Copy. I have some words on Cedra. I'm not sure if we've mentioned it to you. We're currently operating in single bed. Good copy. And Eileen, if you guys have a chance to queue up some centerline camera views as well, we'd certainly like to see that too. Hey Jeff, we were talking to Mark earlier on the Aruba leak check, and we gave him a go to proceed with step 4, but we're not sure if we got a return call or if it went through. So we just wanted to confirm he got that communication. E-Class confirms that the PBA serial number 1010 has to come home. The reason is because it has expired. It's certified live, so it needs to come home so you can move it as per the transfer plan. Pavel, добрый день, как у тебя? We'd like to know which SSC you would like to use in the PMC.
At this point, we now have a trajectory with the arrival date at Venus much closer to the ideal arrival date. So hopefully that will allow us to better set up our slingshotters. Which it appears that it has. Some graphics glitching going on, but nothing major.
Discovery station on the big loop. You have a go for maneuver to MPLM viewing position.
You can see here we are getting a really close approach with steers, or re-encounter. Up to 9 million meters, which actually puts us on an impact trajectory with steers. So our current flight plan does indeed allow us this. Now we need to design the flight plan in such a way where we get the best approach.
have more details on those cables if you wish. Aha! We were going to tell you about that half CTB and give you even a location, but we're really glad you found them.
It appears that our inclination angle is far too excessive for this kind of flyby. That's a major contributor to why we're not getting a good flyby. Now, out of curiosity, I'm going to see what happens if we tell it to wait at least half an orbit. Tell it to wait a full orbit. Can we get a closer approach? And the answer there appears to be no. And the main issue at this point seems to be getting the orbital planes of Earth and Venus aligned sufficiently.
Copy that as well, thank you. Airlock Houston, Space Ground 2 for Ruba.
It would be quite helpful if Transect would give us some more information about what our orbit would look like after we can perform the departure burn, but that might not be possible. The fact that so much plane change is needed to get to Venus appears to be what's messing with our results.
Copy. And if you're bringing up payload 3 on the monitor there, what do you see?
And Discovery Station on the Big Loop, we show ourselves complete with the robotics ops today.
And Pavel, did we hear right? SSC 6? Discovery Houston, Wendy. Transfer? We're ready. Clearly this is quite amazing, unbelievable. We're very, very pleased, I must say.
At this point, I think I figured out that a combination of positive outward velocity will bring our Hohmann transfer closer to the
signs across the room,
or closer
option
to the
one by far for quality of video.
The ascending and descending nodes of our orbital plane's intersection with Venus's. So by doing this, we can set up a close approach that does not require so much drastic of a plane difference, which appears to be the biggest issue we had.
That's one way to do it. We think it takes about 20 minutes, and most of the time would be devoted to locating the cables, and we can help with that.
We were finally able to get a reasonably close approach. We should be able to tune this just using the change plane and prograde. Obviously, even this is preliminary because we're going to have to go forward and adjust the slingshot because our arrival date has been changed significantly by that. If we go forward a view, we can see that we no longer have a close approach with steers. Back when we could turn off the orbits to intercept functionality. It does not appear that our closer approach is actually helping, because in this case we can't get a close approach right.
I have more details on those cable if you wish.
We're arriving too late at Venus. At this point we will have to retune the orbit again. Let's try and get us an arrival at Venus that's much closer to our intended optimal date. I will say that if simply being able to access the longitude of the ascending node of what our intended
Go ahead.
what our transferable would be very useful at this stage, because that would allow me to match these values very closely.
Station Houston on space to ground 2 for John and Sergey from the shuttle side.
At this point, the only feasible option looks like just departing earlier. Because that's, again, it does not appear as if it's going to get any less sensitive. So we'll move our eject date back a couple days. Or it's only 2 days ahead of us, and see if that helps any.
We're okay with that plan. You can vent the line, mate and demate the QD again, and let us know what happens.
Could very well be that day use was just not optimal, even though it might have appeared that way. Was that even though that might have been what trajectory optimizer tool gave us. We're going to need a little bit more negative prograde.
Copy that. We don't think so, but we'll let you know if we solved our OS TPU update problem.
Alright, with this preliminary close approach, now I'm going to go forward to this view and see if we can get any closer of an approach back to the Earth.
Awesome. Well, that's all for us on a very busy day today.
No, as of right now, it does not appear
We
to
copy.
be
Give us a minute. We're
sufficient.
discussing.
We can add some more negative prograde velocity and then tune our outward velocity around that.
Station for MPLM ingress, air to ground 2. Now we actually need to push the arrival date further back
further forward, should I say.
Copy that. We don't think so, but we'll let you know if we solved our OS TPU update problem. Go ahead. Station Houston, welcome aboard Lisa and Stephanie. Nice to hear your voice.
Right now we seem to be having a much better time getting a close approach than we did before. Just one general piece of advice to note. If you notice what I'm doing here when I'm adjusting the plane change velocity, I'm not adjusting it to produce the closest miss distance. Instead, what I'm adjusting the prograde velocity to do is align it. Because if you don't set up the transfer properly, an inclination angle that is not aligned with your encounter can produce a closer approach than one that is, but that's just because you haven't tuned the other variables properly.
Airlock Houston,
So generally speaking, my workflow here is to
Uba.
tune the plane change velocity to be perfectly aligned with our encounter axis. That way, as you can see here, it allows me to bring down the other variables to the prograde velocity way down compared to what I could if it was not aligned.
Again, great job on your part, Mark, you and your team. Just one quick question. We're wondering about ICOM from the ground. Is it working well for you?
In that case, you could see we did not really tune our plane change that well. It will cause a close approach to go up instead of down. In that case, we tuned it much better than before. And probably one of the biggest disadvantages of TransX is how manual it is. There are so many things, such as you can see here, aligning the planes, that's just manual. It's completely like visually manual. There are no numbers to look at to figure out how to do this. So if this looks like guesstimating, that's because that's what it pretty much is at this point.
Also tells me it has been done before, so it will.
With our current departure date, we can get a reasonably close approach back to the Earth, but we need to keep our arrival date on Venus pretty much the same. See here, we're able to mess with the variables and get a good slingshot at this point. We'll just see if we can
Go ahead.
tune this a bit better, because again, the inclination seems to be the biggest challenge in tuning. I want to see if there's any particular variable combination that allows us to change the inclination. Not inclination, but get the relative inclination down. Again, at this point, we can get the close approach that we require, but the inclination alignment is the tricky part. Now we have a very good approach that gets us very close relative inclination.
Well, that also clears up a bit of confusion from our part, and the plan that you've just outlined is excellent, and you'll go for that. So, Jeff, you think I should just go ahead and let you know?
Okay, I'm with you on page 9.
I think I finally settled on a combination of variables that allows us to tune this. So for the initial planning phase, I think that is accurate enough of a flyby. Especially since, again, we will have to be adjusting this ever so slightly. Get a closer approach.
Station for MPLM ingress, air to ground 2. Okay, great. That helps a lot. We'll talk about it. We'll get back to you.
We still have a close approach on the air, so I will quick save this and save this as our final plan for this mission. Took a lot of trial and error, but we finally managed to get what we needed. Now, I can already tell, however, that this mission is going to require very accurate orbital parameters. So we're going to have to make sure we time our departure burn as close to optimal as possible. Because just looking at that, as our tuning there, the slight differences are causing massive not problems, but massive changes in our arrival date and time, inclination, and getting our two selves to this flyby. We'll just copy the current state and make a copy of it in our custom scenarios folder. Now we will open our custom scenarios and now load our planned version. And this is the version we'll be quick saving from and doing all our stuff from.
Welcome aboard, Commander. All systems nominal. External cooling online.
So, for planning our departure burn will be another challenge.
And Steve, we have a location to put that grab sample container. Once you've filled it, you can call us back when you're ready.
First of all, we need to reduce our periapsis distance. Secondly, we're going to warp until we hit the MJD that we calculated, till just before it. 56587.3225. Actually, before we do that, let's use the scenario. Let's actually get ourselves pointed the right way on the runway.
Using onboard O2.
Open the function in the scenario editor. Right now it's pointed the wrong way for any sort of orbital insertion.
Okay, great. That helps a lot. We'll talk about it. We'll get back to you. That's one way to do it. We think it takes about 20 minutes, and most of the time would be devoted
now we need to point at burn
locating the cables, and we can help with that.
150. I don't know what it was trying to activate. Either, in any case, we can turn on our external cooling.
LOX hatch
open up the LOX hatch.
External cooling online. LOX resupply systems online.
And run a save again. now we have saved this scenario specifically. And so I will have to load it again. This is just to make things simpler.
Welcome aboard, Commander. All systems nominal. External cooling online.
Also open up the LOX
No
hatch.
external line pressure. LOX hatch open. LOX resupply systems online.
Our LOX is filled.
LOX resupply systems offline.
I really hope it did not delete. Yep, the custom scenario did end up deleting our transx stuff, so we're just going to have to load our previous save.
Welcome aboard, Commander. All systems nominal.
It also seems to have deleted our transx information.
Welcome aboard, Commander.
And now we have our
All
transx
systems
information
nominal.
back.
External cooling online.
So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the mission that has us aligned on a runway, pull the coordinates from the scenario editor, and plug that in to our working mission.
Welcome aboard, Commander. All systems nominal.
For some
External
reason,
cooling
the saving
online.
function is not playing nice. Now we should be able to load this mission, plug in the coordinates, and we should be good to take off once we time warp to the correct launch window.
Welcome aboard, Commander. All systems nominal. External cooling online.
Now we go to the function scenario editor, go to our XR2 location, and now let's first apply the latitude change, correction, and then apply the longitude change. And then finally point ourselves heading 150. And that's it. So now we have to time warp. Again, I'm going to go to transx. Although it did remove the set PE distance, but that's fine.
At 23:08 tonight, we'll be doing CBM prep for mate, and doing so we'll be driving boats, so don't be surprised if you hear some noise.
We're going to try departure about now. This is the sun's rising. Now this is going to be a pretty big burn delta V wise. By all practical measures, so 11.28k, but actually that's not including our orbital velocity. So it's actually not going to be that bad. Now, one minor note is that I didn't realize this before, but it's actually possible to just like use there's an external fuel tank available for the XR2.
And Thomas, I'm ready on space to ground 2 for the transfer brief.
We're just trying to set up our heading so that it's approximately 090. To give us the most efficient and low delta V, but actually does not appear to be going down anymore. So we will be content with our current setup. That will require an ascent heading of 138.9. So we will turn on internal cooling,
onboard O2.
turn on the APU,
Hit
put the
on.
auto flight control surface to on, reset our attitude hold autopilot, and we are ready for takeoff. Actually, I'm going to shut off the APU for just a second and bring up sync orbit MFD, and I guess in the meantime I'll just
Fuel hatch
open the fuel hatch and
using external LOX hatch refueling systems online. External
And I
cooling
meant to say the
LOX
aligned
resupply
planes.
systems online.
so our target orbit is going to have an inclination of 42.45 degrees. Our longitude of ascending node is 67.38 degrees. And so now we can correctly do this, and now we can ascend to orbit.
APU fuel tanks full. LOX resupply system using onboard O2.
I'm getting signs across the room. Option 1
And
by far for quality
AF
of
control
video.
surface
On.
on. Center of gravity shift centered. We are ready for takeoff.
knots. V1. Rotate. Wheels up. Gear up. Warning. Gear deployed. Gear up and locked.
Now we're going to begin our aggressive pitch up phase. This time, unlike in the past, I'm actually doing this maneuver inverted. In the past, I did this maneuver right side up. It appears to be working pretty well.
Mach 2.
one left standing, and we are ready anytime.
Copy. Give us a few minutes. We'll call you back when we're set up. And KU's locked.
Set it to pitch mode. Nope, 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 nope. Not at this point, this is just going to be constant altitude cross-checking. You might need a bit more main thrust. Here too. Their experiments are not providing us with enough acceleration at this point.
Mach 5. Mach 6. Mach 7. Warning, wind stress.
See right now, this is just basically a constant balancing game of trying to keep your temperatures
Mach
down
8.
while still having a safe ascent.
And Mark, it's confirmed we'll put 44 in work for you.
This is a pretty sloppy ascent by any reasonable standards, but any
Mach
errors and
9.
stuff can be corrected while in orbit, so just in terms of like inclination and stuff.
Hey, what we need to do now, Robo's going to do some Inca motor drive tests and also some
Mach
video
10.
checks, and that should take about 2 hours, and then we'll have a full check out of the MT. We'll call you back.
Mach 11.
The ascent trajectory is taking us to the southeast.
Mach 12. Mach 13.
That aggressive pitch up just to keep the temperatures down in the hull.
Mach 14.
It's probably a very non-optimal descent, as I mentioned earlier, but again, we can correct the errors in inclination, though, and this is not, unfortunately,
And
for
just
not
a
a
little
mission
note
with
for
very
you, I
tight
just talked to
fuel margins.
Spanky, and there is no starting cap on board ISS.
Mach 15. Mach 16. Warning, scram fuel low. Mach 17.
Copy.
Warning, scram
Give us a second,
fuel
we'll look at it.
depleted.
Now we're going to switch back to the main engines to complete this burn.
18.
Scram doors are confirmed to be closed.
Mach 19.
We're going to aim for apoapsis of about
Mach
200
20.
kilometers.
Mach 21. Mach 22. Mach 23.
Right now, apoapsis is at 130 kilometers.
Mach 24. Mach 25. Mach 26.
Apoapsis at 200 kilometers, we will shut off our main engines and now coast up to our apoapsis.
Mach 26.
Stand by.
Information. APU fuel 90%.
And while we are at AP, I'm asking to deploy the radiator.
Pitch off.
Now that we're approaching altitude, we're going to bring up the external MFD to bring up burn time calculator. And nope, we have to switch to mode to the apoapsis circularization, which is looking pretty good at this point. 300 seconds until we hit our apoapsis and will be required to make our burn. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1, and our burn has started. This will be a 23-second burn. Again, I'm pretty sure in the past the apoapsis burns were shorter than this, but again, that's probably just due to the horrible ascent. Now we're on a 199 by 202 kilometer orbit, which is more than accurate enough for our purposes.
Okay, stand by. The actual deucer that currently is registering off-scale low is right off upstream
So
of
right
QD,
now,
so
we're approaching
let me run that
our...
plan with Ecos and get back to you.
So right now we need to first approach, because before we wanted to mess with any of the plane changes, we want to get close to our proper arrival date. So it's 56587.3.
Station for MPLM ingress, air to ground 2.
Do a quick save as we're coming up on the proper ejection date. And again, getting this burn right is going to be key to our mission. Because accuracy is so critical. A quick save it right now and see if we can make another orbit. Yep, we will be able to make another orbit. So on this next pass, we're going to pretty much
Thanks for checking. We can confirm both rooms
be at
are
our
ready
optimal ejection
for
time. So
7.2.
we'll begin our aligning of our planes. As we're approaching the ascending node, we're going to be doing anti-normal for our plane change burn. It's supposed to be a 16-second burn.
Okay, copy. Overnight, the machines to leave on are the OCA router, KFX, RPOP, RPOP2, and WLES. And we'll have KFX running on RPOP and the KFX machine.
Rotation, translation.
So we use some RCS here to get our planes aligned perfectly, as perfectly as we can get them anyway. So now we're going to use the technique of creating a maneuver node.
Station Houston, welcome aboard, Lisa and Stephanie. Nice to hear your voice.
This is aligning almost perfectly with our what did the maneuver node we need. And this view is actually quite helpful. It allows us to tune our maneuver node with eye accuracy.
Okay, and if Thomas is still listening, could you let him know that after DPC, after the Moscow part, that he should be expecting a special call?
Now we will go through the what would seem to if you aren't familiar with how to do this in Transx, it might seem like a waste of time, but by redoing it as a maneuver node, we get much more control and the ability to precisely point it where we want, because the maneuver view mode does not work with the plan set up in the Hammond transfer plan, for the lack of a better term. Alright, we'll bring the Align plane up on the external MFD so I can focus completely on the Trans-X. We'll do another quick save here. Now we're going to do what won't make much sense right now, but I'm just going to have to reset everything, including the prograde velocity. Our outward velocity, and our change plane velocity. Now we have to basically begin the tuning process again, except in orbit this time actually.
The set point for the CCA is set at 25. We hope this is okay for you. If not, let us know and we'll set a different temperature. Discovery Houston, Wendy. Transfer? We're ready.
We're just going to do all the adjustments we can using this prograde. Then we'll start using the outward velocity. But actually, I don't think I should be needing to use that. Instead, what I might need to be adjusting is the transfer date. And that's going to be extremely sensitive. I can already tell it's going to be extremely sensitive, so I'm going to make sure that's on micro. Now to begin this process all over again.
Also tells me it has been done before, so it will.
Also might slow this down to 0.1 times speed. Actually, no, that's not what we're looking for.
That's the configuration we're in. We're hoping to go dual bed ups tomorrow or sometime.
No, I think we're close enough where it's a matter of now. It's now a matter of tuning the variables in this view. Finding that right combination again. Might take a little bit of, again, same kind of tweaking that was going on before.
We're okay with that plan. You can vent the line, mate and demate the QD again, and let us know what happens. Pierce, we copy, and we like that plan, and thanks to Jeff. Fortunately, there is this one additional one we're going to transfer, the one that you guys just found in the mid-deck.
Now that we can get a bit close approach again.
I thought
Pretty
you
much
did,
back to
yes.
how it
The
was
entire
before.
crew on video, and the answer to your question and your greetings were aired in the entire stadium in Berlin. Steve, we've performed our side of the work. If you check that the MPV is full open, you can then open the hatch again per decal. Absolutely. Lots of happy people here.
So look like with a bit of adjustment of our maneuver date, we're able to get a pretty good close approach.
I copy 426 and 427.
We might have overdone the maneuver node adjustment. Maneuver date adjustments. So whatever we just did, we almost got it where we needed to, but it looked like I managed to get it off of that. Might have to go back to that. Attempt to get a close approach back again. Actually, I'm going to look back at the stream and figure out the number I was at. The numbers I was at when I got that really good
Station
approach.
Houston, space to ground 2 for John.
So maneuver date was... So our change plane was 337.5. Or negative 337.5. And all we need to do now is just adjust the maneuver date until we get a close approach back again.
The set point for the CCA is set at 25. We hope this is okay for you. If not, let us know and we'll set a different
what I was
temperature.
doing was the closest approach to do that. I was making it bigger, so I must have made it too big. I'm going to move the maneuver date back a bit. Now adjust the plane change velocity. And there we go. Now we have a nice close approach.
Airlock Houston, space to ground 2 for Ruba.
Here we're getting pretty much honed in on our ideal approach. As you can see here, tuning for this kind of a mission requires a lot of precision. Like the process of tweaking the variables to get to perfect encounter
At
is very
23:08 tonight, we'll be doing CBM prep for mate, and
time-consuming.
doing so we'll be driving both, so don't be surprised if you hear some noise.
But as you can see, very critical to being able to successfully negotiate our gravity sys.
That's the configuration we're in. We're hoping to go dual bed ups tomorrow or sometime.
We have a near perfect flyby plan now, or eject burn. As we are going to quick save this. And now we can finally use TransX to properly plan this eject burn.
Okay, the suggestion is that you can cycle the handle a little further and then lean on the hatch at the same time. That should help it.
Now we will bring up our burn time MFD to get the maneuver information from TransX.
And Thomas, I'm ready on space to ground 2 for the transfer brief.
Now we will enable Auto Center, which unfortunately is quite wasteful of RCS fuel. Actually, I'm going to disable that, since because it's literally just wasting RCS fuel. This will be a 274 second burn using up 5.5 kilometers a second of delta V. And actually, for some reason, it was not. I don't know why, but it was not. Burn time MFD was not on. But regardless, I started it pretty much on time, so. Looking at our delta V indicator. Determine what we're supposed to be doing. Guessing I forgot to arm burn time MFD.
Discovery Houston, we're watching the video and we see no deviation. We're wondering if this is a still picture.
Get the information, but did not arm itself.
Discovery Houston, Underground 2. Yeah, we actually playing back the centerline camera view.
Yeah, we just wanted to pay tribute to the CDR because the target was so centered that it almost looked like this was a still picture. Great job.
Okay.
we're going to do a quick correction burn because our initial ejection burn was not quite where it needed to be. Turn off auto center. Let's do not waste any more RCS. Now we'll point ourselves prograde and watch as we escape from the Earth. There's the moon on the other side.
Hi, copy. 428 is a single CTB, not a half.
We're going to bring up orbit MFD. Auto reference, we're going to bring up the view mode here. Turn off the maneuver node. Now we will wait till we are firmly and fully in the sphere of influence in the sun. And the reason for this is course corrections made when, in this case, the Earth is really close to us, as in when we just escaped, tend to not be very effective. The drift of our closest approach, as we're getting further away from the Earth, the drift gets smaller and smaller because we're having less end-body perturbations to throw our orbit off. So for example, at this point, I think it would be a very good time to do a course correction burn. So we'll turn on the maneuver node, set that to fine, and just push it a little bit in front of us. Bring up TransX on the other MFD. And as you can see, we already have a reasonably close approach, which is very good. We need to make it just that little bit smaller.
Okay, I copy. 1014 is in node 104 Golf.
Now we're back to having a reasonably close approach. that we have a very good close approach here, we now need to go and tune over here. To get our closest approach back. Which should not be particularly hard because, again, we carefully controlled our eject date. See, we can get a pretty close approach to the Earth again with our current slingshot settings. And as you can see at this point, all the adjustments are just really minor at this stage. Like if you're paying attention to the other side, where I've left open the sling plan, where that allows us to plan our Venus slingshot to match well with our Earth's flyby. We're going to allow us to plan our Venus slingshot. It's pretty. Even as I'm changing these variables, the slingshot is not changing that much. So, again, at this point, what's important is that we put ourselves on a trajectory that gets us to Venus at the right time generically.
Mark, water recharge and the METOX regen is not required, so you can skip those steps completely.
We're going to adjust the outward angle. We're going to close this approach down. Yep, we can get now a very good close approach. That would take us inside of the Earth, so I've called that more than acceptable. So now we need to go back, and then using that tuned flyby, we now need to tune our, well, now that we tuned our Earth approach, we now need to tune our flyby with Venus, because if you remember, that messes with our arrival time. Alright, and that should be accurate enough for this initial flyby. For the initial course correction, should I say. Now we'll go back, and now we'll have to go forward again and see what our closest approach at Earth is. And it's acceptable for now. Again, we could go back and forth tuning all this for a while, but if we need to execute this initial course correction burn. Although actually, I think I'm going to give one more shot at tuning the variables here. It just seems to be a bit of playing around with the outward angles, but sufficient. And our slingshot actually has not changed that much. That should be accurate enough for now. If we go forward, you can see we still have a very close approach at the Earth. So now we can set that there. Set that view to the maneuver node and set the variable to the auto center. To enable the auto center for our next course correction burn, which in this case will be 133 meters a second. I'm actually going to execute this burn manually, simply because, again, I don't know why burn time MFD does that. But it cuts off, it does not give me the full burn.
Rotation.
In that case, I overshot considerably. I was assuming that
Translation.
would stop me from doing that. I'm realizing that might have been burn time MFD, not TransX doing that. So from here we can disable the maneuver node and see what our flyby looks like. And it is nearly perfect. We're now going to time warp. And make some more progress on our journey towards Venus, where we will then, tune our trajectory once more as a trajectory correction maneuver. It's interesting right now, I can actually use the F9 to see this, but we're almost in between Earth and Venus, which is pretty neat. There's the sun. Actually can't find it. Okay, there's Earth. Venus should be roughly on the other side here. Perhaps a bit out of plane because of how we did our burn. Like like last time I was looking for Mercury, either I'm really missing something obvious, or I'm not. Yeah, I don't know where Venus is right now. Oh, there it is.
Discovery, Airborne 2, contact.
Yeah. Pretty close to the almost exact opposite sides. Which is something that I could tell pretty clearly from the map MFD. Right now I'm going to actually see if I can do some course corrections using RCS. Yeah, just with some quick RCS burns, we can get a pretty fine-tuned close approach. That's about as good a close approach as we're going to get. So at this point, it's only minor course corrections. And now we're going to have to repeat the process but for the Earth. Get our closest approach to the Earth down, which fortunately just seems to be a very simple outward angle change. All that really changes is a bit of relative inclination we now need. We have a very good close approach with CRS now. We're going to open up the external MFD and bring up orbit MFD with Venus as our target. Once we get a little bit closer, I'm going to click on pause right now to make another course correction burn.
Steve, we copy on the V-band clamp. Thanks a lot.
Should be able to see Venus. And this, our current inclination is 4.06 degrees. Which, by the way, I'm actually going to look at to see how well that matches with what trajectory my tool predicted. So it predicted 3.36 degrees, so I would say that we're pretty close to a good approach, considering how close this to what was predicted. As soon as we show signs of being captured into Venus's sphere of influence, we will begin another burn. Alright, now we see the G meter into orbit MFD. Well, you can't actually see it on stream, but it's rapidly descending at 0.8. Once it hits 0.5, it means the sun is no longer our dominant source of gravity. Yep, so now we're going to auto-reference it to Venus, which is the strongest source. We'll wait till we're pretty firmly in Venus' sphere of influence. I'm going to quick save it, point ourselves prograde. Now just do the same thing as last time. And there is the planet Venus. Second time one of our missions have taken us here recently. Down our relative inclination with some burn, but we can just approximate that with orbit normal plus. Or actually, no, we don't want to do that.
Rotation.
Now we're going to put in a little main engine in order to bring down the relative inclination. We actually overdid that a little bit.
Translation.
We can use the RCS to correct. Point ourselves prograde. Oh, our relative inclination, I just made a really big mistake. It's not supposed to be 1, it's supposed to be 0. I'm looking at the PE ratio, it's supposed to be 1 like the PE ratio is. You can see that does kind of touch our PE ratio a bit, but that's fine. We can use our RCS to first get our R-Inc down to 0. And then we can now point ourselves prograde and use our RCS translations to correct our periapsis ratio. So we need to thrust backwards then. Point ourselves retrograde. Again, I'm pretty much manually eyeballing this because at this point there's not much. There's just no need to go through the hassle of setting up a new maneuver node. Now, our closest approach to Earth has kind of again been messed up slightly by our maneuvering. But again, that's not going to be an issue long term. Now we will conduct our second flyby. Well, not second, first for this mission, but as of recently in our mission, second flyby of Venus. Now we're going to warp out of Venus' sphere of influence, which will again be pretty obvious pretty quickly. Now we're back into orbit around the sun, which is good. Now we need to wait till we're fully clear of Venus' sphere of influence. We can check this using the orbit MFD. At this point, I'm going to point myself prograde and see if there's any sort of manual correction we can do. I will bring down our closest approach at Ars. Turn that we can just manually do this. How much O2 we have left? We have 90% O2, so again, I don't remember what I set the settings to for the XR2, but our O2 really actually shouldn't be a problem for us, period. Interestingly, because of the way we planned out this mission, we're going to end up flying well outside the orbit of the Earth. So this would be, I believe, on our Mars mission. I mentioned this in the live stream, but this would be what you'd call a Type 2 Hohmann transfer, where you meet in the planet, in this case Earth, on the way back down instead of on the way up.
Sounds good. And one little
Although this is pretty
thing,
far from an optimal Hohmann
we're
transfer.
still working on activating the IMV valve. We've had some commanding issues on the ground, but we're working on it, so just so you know.
Now that we're well clear of pretty much any of their spheres of influence, we're going to do another course correction. Again, our plane alignment was pretty much spot on, to the point where, at this point, all we're tuning is the prograde velocity. Like, that's literally all we're doing, messing with the prograde velocity until we get a close approach. And for anyone just tuning into the live stream, all this mission was just more of a skills test than anything, to see how testing the margins for error and just planning out a Earth to Venus back to Earth free return mission with a Venus flyby and gravity assist. Right now we already executed our Venus flyby and are currently on our way back to the Earth. We will execute a reentry to put us back into a low Earth orbit, from where we will either land back at the KSC, or we could alternatively dock at, say, the Mir, get extra fuel, and then come back for another mission, potentially. But at this point, it's looking pretty much like we're going to simply land at the KSC, and perhaps take off for another mission. Probably the most encouraging aspect about this mission so far is that no quick saves have been needed so far, and hopefully we will be able to keep that for our return to the Earth. If so, which would mean it would be my first interplanetary mission without any quick saves. But now that we're getting at our apoapsis of our orbit, we'll do another correction. Again, our close approach is pretty close right now, but we can definitely tune a little bit. Now, from our return from Mars mission, I did learn a few tips on how to re-enter safely without getting ourselves without burning up basically, and at the same time bleeding speed sufficiently fast. I found that you pretty much have to aim for an entry corridor, your initial periapsis of around 70 kilometers, and then you have to really carefully regulate your temperatures. Because as you slow down, you can bring the periapsis down further. Not your periapsis, but your altitude down further. But at the same time, you have to balance that with the fact that you're also going to get hotter faster. And you can end up with a runaway feedback loop if you don't tune it exactly right. So I found out that the reentry is very sensitive to small changes in alpha angle of attack. And I also learned that when you're flipping right side up to skip back out of the atmosphere, you need a bit more. I basically did it too late. You start this when your apoapsis is about 3 million meters. And again, I'll probably explain this more in depth when I actually do the reentry. Right now we're approaching the Earth rather rapidly. So we're going to point ourselves prograde again. And do a final course correction burn. Or unless, at least it'll be our last course correction burn from outside the Earth's sphere of influence. All our future burns will be from inside the Earth's sphere of influence. Right now the Earth's moon system should actually be pretty visible. Or no, I'll just have to use the planetarium mode. And okay, there they are. I forgot we're approaching them from the back side almost, so you're not going to get a very good. They're not going to be sunlit from the angle we're approaching them from. Our periapsis velocity is going to be 13.7 kilometers a second. It's going to be quite fast. Even faster than what we did for our Mars mission, which was around. Actually, might have been around the same. I'd have to check the stream again to be certain, but it might have been around the same. But either way, this is going to be a typical fast interplanetary reentry. You can see our G meter on the left side dropped to 0.99. That means that there's another gravitational source competing with the sun. And in this case, it is the Earth, which you can now see. That's a pretty good view of the Earth. Actually, no, that's the moon that we were just seeing. Backlit Earth. Well, not quite like you could see at Venus, but still pretty nice. We're going to use some retro thrust in order to bring our periapsis down. Actually, no, we're not going to use retrograde. Nope.
Rotation.
To put it in rotation mode. We're going to use the orbit out. Radial out. Which again, I'm surprised there is no function for the radial in and out. But I guess that's just an orbiter thing. Or should I say it's just a case spacing that just was never ported into orbiter. Orbiters never had for some reason. So I think we could be pointing ourselves the other way around. At least if I'm looking, if I'm
So Jeff, you think I should just go ahead and let you know?
Periapsis down to 270. kind of angle is much more efficient for actually reducing our periapsis.
Translation.
Alright, now we have our reentry corridor set up. Now, I'll actually be AFK for about 5 minutes. When I'm back, we will execute the reentry and the aerocapture into Earth's orbit. The landing part at Cape Canaveral will be done at a later time, or docking at Mir, whichever happens. But see you guys in about 5 minutes. Alrighty, I am back. So now we're going to complete the entry and aerocapture part of this Venus free return slingshot mission.
Rotation. Translation.
I'm gonna get our periapsis back to 70 kilometers. When it's also prograde. This excellent shot of the Earth. In fact, you see the United States and Cape Canaveral, South America. Now that we're approaching the Earth, and what is our inclination per chance? I'll have to find it here somewhere. Inclination is 6.10 degrees, so actually too low of an inclination to return back to the Cape Canaveral directly. But I believe we set that as our target spacecraft. Mir is, okay, that's 22 degrees. So we actually should have planned this transfer to have far less inclination. I mean, far more inclination. ISS is in, wow, that's a lot of inclination.
Well, the good news is that Cedra is running too. Hey, listen, Jeff, can you tell us who's listening on the other hand?
So, we have two options. You can either use the atmosphere to help, you know, do a plane change at the same time, but I don't think I'm actually going to do that for right now. At least not for the first aerocapture. You might use a future aerocapture to do that. You know, we want to get our periapsis, our inclination up.
Warning, re-entry check failed.
Yes, I'm aware, computer, that I just failed to re-entry check. So this time, unlike our last Mars mission, I'm not going to be negligent in time warp or wait too long, because again, we're closing really fast. Our vertical speed is negative 4,000 meters a second. It's very high. At 200 kilometers, we will give the call out. Not give the call, but we will close the radiator.
APU offline.
We will stow the radiator and set up our attitude hold, which should be at negative 180 degrees. 180 degrees and 40 degrees of AOA. That is the wrong way, but it's correcting itself. We're now at our re-entry attitude. And you can see at this point, we're not quite at the point where our temperatures are going to be going up, but we're descending really rapidly. Our temperatures will start going up any moment. Now, I don't quite remember offhand whether increasing or decreasing the pitch increases or decreases the vertical speed. We'll just have to figure that out from some testing on the fly, which is generally a bad idea, and our reentry has begun. Indeed, our temperatures are very high. Wrong way, I just remembered that that's the wrong way.
Warning, hull temperature.
And we're about to overheat this probably.
Warning, hull temperature. Warning, hull temperature.
And we somehow managed to come out of that in one piece, which is pretty... wow. Now we're climbing rapidly out of the atmosphere, which is not good. So yeah, that's why you don't do that. And we're going too fast. We need to bring our nose. We need to release off some of our extra speed here. It doesn't look like we're actually going to be able to do that. Yep, and I guess that will have to be our first use of quick save. So yeah, what happened there, in order to not burn up, I basically had to let us skip off the atmosphere. And the margins for this kind of mission is slim, or for this kind of reentry, I should say.
All systems nominal.
Reentry has started. So yeah, I'm thinking that pulling the nose down more should decrease our vertical speed. I'm thinking that putting more alpha in should make us fall faster, but it actually doesn't and makes us climb back again. Which is interesting, but it's a good way to modulate the pitch. I'm going to add some back pressure. Don't want to climb out of the atmosphere.
Copy.
Nope, we don't want to do that. Don't want to do that. Yeah, this is going to take some very carefully timed and planned skips in
The
and
one
out of the
that we're
atmosphere
looking
to
for,
not burn
that
us
we
up.
would like you to use, are the 2 heart rate monitors that you guys would be using for your normal exercise on board the orbiter. And we think that those 2 HRMs are in the ergometer bag next to the shuttle ergometer. Did you find anything in there?
I might have to use some engine gear to try and bring our vertical speed down. And no, that's not going to work. Again, this speed is way faster than my previous interplanetary reentry, which was probably around... Okay, let's see how fast this is.
All systems
It's 13
nominal.
kilometers a second, almost 14. Yeah, our previous one I'm pretty sure was pretty close to 11. So what we need to do in this case actually is, no. touching stuff I don't intend to touch. So what it appears to be that we set our periaptus a tad bit too low. Just a little bit. But just enough to throw our reentry off. I'm also going to see if our air brake can be used. So what I'm actually thinking we're going to have to do, we're going to have to do this pullback here much earlier in order to keep our temperatures down.
Station Houston, welcome aboard Lisa and Stephanie. Nice to hear your voice.
Here we go. Now we have a nice stabilized reentry, and no, we don't want to skip off. Here we go. Now we're nice and stabilized. Yeah, very narrow reentry corridor here. We also, I did put out our air brakes this time, simply because I believe it should help us, you know, lose some speed a bit faster. Well, I'm actually surprised that, you know, the air brakes can actually tolerate that much heat, or should I say dynamic pressure, but I guess whatever they decided to make the XR2 tolerant to, I'll take it.
At 2308 tonight, we'll be doing CBM prep for mate, and doing so we'll be driving both, so don't be surprised if you hear some noise.
We're descending pretty steadily at 11, now 10 meters a second. We don't want to descend too much. Or so we don't want to stop our descent or rest our descent.
Discovery, air to ground 2, com check.
Slowly but steadily losing airspeed. It's pretty slow, but we're getting there. We have about 3/4 of G of acceleration right now. You can see we're keeping our hull temperatures pretty much on the limit to help us brake the fastest. Oh, no, we don't want to do that. Climbing. That's what happens when you're too busy looking at the temperature and not paying enough attention to vertical speed. Don't want to just dive all in either. I want to keep this entry under control.
Copy. Do you have a copy of message 130506, the VTR bypass cable message available?
Increase our descent a little bit because our temperatures are into green, and well, green the The closer you can push it to the limits, the slower we can slow, the faster we can slow down.
That starts on page 30. I hope this helps.
We're going to try and at least get it into the, well, we really have no option but to get it into the yellow. Into the red, and we're at the risk of over temperature. Just to show, illustrate again how long this aerocapture is taking. We are still in a hyperbolic orbit. We're still in an escape trajectory. If we were to flip ourselves right side up and then skip back out, we would escape
Station
into
Houston for
the
Jeff
solar
and
orbit
DPC,
again.
we're back with you.
So aerobraking like this, aerocapture, they're a pretty long, drawn-out, patient process. But the delta V savings are, of course, massive because I actually don't think I have the delta V right now to capture into an Earth orbit. So being able to use the atmosphere to do this for you is a tremendous bonus. And that, for example, is something I intend to use on our next Mars mission.
Station Houston, Space Ground 2 for Jeff.
Aerocapture into Mars orbit versus powered capture. As you can see there, our eccentricity is at 1.16, dropping, and that's telling us how close we are to being in a circular orbit. Well, just telling us how elliptical our orbit is. Anything over 1 is a hyperbola, 1 is a parabola, anything other than anything between 0 and 1 is an ellipse, and 0 is a perfect circle. So as you can see there, our eccentricity is almost at 1, meaning that we're almost captured into the Earth's orbit. Our temperatures are actually getting a bit high, higher than I'd want. I'm going to nose back over. No. You want to bring the vertical speed down. There we go. Pretty much pushing the boundaries. Yep, and now we're going to capture it into an orbit. Where on the map we are. I will briefly open up map MFD and hope we don't burn up the craft from distracted attention to just see where we are on the Earth. So we're passing over Madagascar. We just passed over Madagascar.
Mark, we
What that
go and
landmass
we'll
we
put
just
30
saw
seconds
was.
work.
Okay, now we'll bring back orbit. Actually, no, that's useful stuff that we need to safely re-enter.
Discovery Station on the Big Loop, you have a go for starboard MRL release.
Maybe we've dropped about 5 to 10 kilometers on our entry altitude. And we are right now at 659 kilometers in altitude. We started at almost about 68, I believe. Although I think we might have skipped back up to almost 70.
Airlock Houston, Space Ground 2 for Ruba.
Information. APU fuel 80%.
So at this stage, as our orbit's getting smaller and smaller, I'm going to do a temperature reduction maneuver. So I'm essentially going to try and get us to climb significantly up to about 65, 70 kilometers. The point behind this maneuver is to keep the temperatures cool so we have a bit more margin for a flip over. You can see our apoapsis is 8 megameters. We want that to be about 3 when we do our flip out. Because again, this will be manually done this reentry to
Good copy. And
reorientation.
Eileen, if you guys have a chance to queue up some centerline camera views as well, we'd certainly like to see that too.
Now on this one, now that we're approaching 3 megameters, no.
Warning, hull temperature. Warning, hull temperature.
We actually need to turn on the pitch
Mach 26
control
on.
surfaces. In that case, we were a bit too. I think it was the trim that was set. Now we're going to basically just cruise in an upright position, like this. Now we can kind of just coast here. As we bleed off some extra speed.
Mach 26.
Okay, and if Thomas is still listening, could you let him know that after DPC, after the Moscow
negative
part,
alpha.
that he should be expecting a special call?
Or to bring our vertical speed down a bit. Ended up being a bit too aggressive with our climb, but that is still far better than what it has been usually.
Mach 27 plus.
At this point, we're going to put in 2.0 times time acceleration. Well, at this point, we are actually going to disengage the autopilot, reset the trim, and now, with our dynamic pressure is low enough, we're going to open the radiator, close the air brake,
Pitch.
turn on the APU, and we are now in a 2,000 by 65 kilometer orbit.
Oh, I copy. 428 is a single CTB, not a
This
half.
stream. The next part, we will basically assess our options for what we're exactly going to do. Whether a return to the KSC via, well, we're gonna have to make some sort of inclination change to get anywhere of consequence. But that being said, I will now save this orbiter scenario and take down the stream. Thank you for watching.